Well, good morning. We're happy to be with you again today and sharing another beacon of hope. And I'm continuing the series on the fruit of the Spirit. On Sunday we gave an introduction, and today's devotion, Beacon of Hope, is based on Galatians 5:22. Paul says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love." Someone has correctly said that love trumps all, and that's true. Love is a very, very important fruit of the Spirit. It's listed first, so it is very important. Let me begin our beacon of hope with this little story. A young woman walked into a fabric shop one afternoon, and she was very excited. She was getting married, and she made a very unusual request. Now the shop owner had heard a lot of requests before, requests for different colors of cloth, requests for different patterns, but this was the most unusual he had ever heard. It indeed was an unusual request. Here's what she asked for. She said, "I'd like to purchase some of your noisiest white material. You know, the kind that rustles when you walk." Well, the shop owner searched all over in the back and finally found two such bolts of cloth and brought them to the counter for his customer to inspect. She picked up several lengths and shook them gently in front of her. "Perfect," she said, beaming, as she listened to the crackle of the cloth. "I'll take 3 yards of this material." The shop owner's curiosity got the best of him. He had to ask. He said, "Excuse me, miss, but why do you want cloth that's noisy?" Well, the woman smiled shyly and gave an explanation. She said, "You see, I'm making my wedding gown, and my fiancé is blind. When I walk down the aisle, I want him to know that I'm coming. And with this kind of cloth, he'll hear me when I arrive at the altar. That way he won't be embarrassed." Well, how thoughtful and how considerate of that young lady. As I thought about the story, I came to the conclusion that is true love. Well, when God, through the Apostle Paul, provided a description of what a Spirit-filled Christian would be like, there in Galatians 5, love topped the list. For you see, love is the very foundation upon which all other attributes build upon. 1 Corinthians 13 is called the love chapter, and Paul says, I want to share a few verses from that beautiful chapter. 1 Corinthians 13 verses 4 through 7. Paul says, "Love suffereth long, and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeks not her own, is not easily provoked, thinks no evil, rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love beareth all things. Love believeth all things. Love hopeth all things. Love endureth all things." What a blessing love, true love, is. When we look at the life of Jesus in the Gospels, through the Bible, we see that Jesus was a living testament of his Father's love. We could call his life an echo of God's love. Christ's life will forever be an example, a standard by which we can judge how effectively we're echoing the Father's love to others. And by the way, I'm indebted to an author called, his name is Charles Mills, and he wrote the devotional book Echoing God's Love, And much of the material I'm sharing in this series, is from reading his beautiful book, Echoing God's Love, so I'm indebted to that. Jesus was a living, breathing echo of his Father's love for each one of us. Here's a poem from Mr. Author Unknown. Some of the best material is written by Author Unknown. Love is silence when your words would hurt. Love is patience when your neighbor's curt. It's deafness when the scandal flows. It's thoughtfulness for another's woes. It's promptness when stern duty calls. It's courage when misfortune falls. The story is told of a 4-year-old girl who came stumbling into the kitchen, clutching her 2 favorite dolls, one under each arm. Looking wistfully up at her mother, she said, "Mama, I love them. And then I love them. And I love them some more, but they don't love me back." How true of the world we live in. How indicative of the world we live in. True love is unconditional, not expecting anything in return. That love comes from God, who is the pure source of all true love. And God's love is stronger than our hate. It's more unselfish than our pride, forgiving when all we want is revenge, and able to take endless abuse for the sake of our salvation. When it comes to love, we find its perfect echo in Jesus. The promise I'll leave with you today is found in John 3:16. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have everlasting life. May God bless you. May you demonstrate God's love today, is my prayer. Amen.